I'm almost too on brand because this shirt literally makes me look like Freddy Krueger, but we're gonna move past it. Hello everybody and welcome to another installment of Destiny Reads Unpopular Opinions and tries not to make anybody mad, including herself. Listen, I have done these types of videos a few times on my channel. I feel like they're always interesting to dive into for a little bit. I feel like it brings up a lot of discussions. I feel like it's also very interesting to see like other points of view within the community that you're involved in. It's nice to open your brain for a bit and think about like what other people are thinking of. I also just find these videos very interesting to watch and see like discourse about it and everything, as long as it's respectful. Thank you so much. That is what we're going to do today. Fun fact, I actually filmed this video like last month and then I edited the entire thing and exported it from my computer. Thought that I had uploaded it to YouTube and then deleted everything off my laptop because I needed to edit some more videos, because even though Apple charges literally so much and has you pay for extra storage, I never have any. So I do delete things after I know that they have already like served their purpose and they're fine, they're in somewhere safe. Delete everything, and then yeah, that video never saw the light of day. So hopefully this one does. Okay, I've screenshotted them in advance on my phone, but I do need my glasses. Really trying to give the fall vibe today, which is why I am going to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is none other than Pair Eyewear. I've worked with them so many times before, and you guys see me like actually organically wear their glasses all of the time. I love them so much. I've used them for years, and I absolutely love them because of how affordable and easy they are to get. I am somebody who hates having to like go into the store and like pick out glasses and like try them on. It's just a lot. It's a lot to go into the store and do that. So I like that I can just go on to Pair Eyewear, browse all of their different base frames. They have so many, and even in the base frames, they have so many different color options. And then you can also use their virtual try-on tool, which is what I do to see what the glasses would look like on my face. Pair Eyewear offers a touch of customization, which is with their top frames. So for example, I have these two top frames with me right now. I have these different colors, and all you have to do is that they have these magnetic strips on the side, and then you just snap them on like so, and it completely changes the appearance of your glasses. I like these simple colored ones like so. I feel like they just add a whole entire different elevated look. So if you guys are interested in trying out Pair Eyewear and loving them as much as I do, I'm going to have the link down below for you guys. You guys can use the code DESREADING15 to get 15% off your first pair. Thank you so much again to Pair Eyewear for sponsoring today's video. First of all, before we get into any of the topics in today's video, I do want to say a huge disclaimer. Anything I say in this video is my opinion. It is not fact. And also, if we don't agree on the opinions, this is not me attacking you personally. This is just me having a difference of opinion with you. I still respect you in your opinion. I always try to keep things respectful with everybody. This is just like my discourse on certain topics. I just want us all to have fun and have a fun little discussion about books, and none of it is an attack on you as a person personally, what I feel about you, or anything along the lines of that. I love every single one of you guys watching today's video, and I hope you can get some enjoyment out of it. So let's get into some unpopular opinions. I love you guys. Remember to keep it respectful, keep it classy. First and foremost, when I went through to look for these, I was very surprised that my own brother had submitted something and that it wasn't a joke. He was being serious. My brother's unpopular opinion, not to expose you, says if a book doesn't grab your interest within the first few pages, you should drop it. And you know what? It's funny enough because me and my brother have actually had conversations at length, and when we have went book shopping together, it is a very interesting experience because, you know, I go into my books and I obviously am in the book community, so I know like what other people are talking about. I kind of have this idea when I go into the bookstore of like what I want. My brother, on the other hand, he goes around and he will pick up a book and he will do exactly what he said. He will just like sit there and read the first few pages of a book, and if it did not grab his attention, he closes it, puts it back on the shelf, and he's like not getting it. And you know what? The man saves money that way. He may be missing out on some things because sometimes you do need to give the book some time, for sure. You know what? At the same time, he's saving money. He's doing it better than me. But on a real note, that is very valid, and I feel that so much sometimes of just the like, if a book is not grabbing your attention, especially if you're feeling a little slumpy, it can feel very, very challenging to even want to like continue on with it. If it's genuinely like, I have no interest in what's going on in these first few pages, I feel like that's different than it just moving a little bit slow in the beginning. If the book is genuinely like from page 1 something that I'm off the bat like, this is not for me, I'm putting it down. People should be allowed to post the negative reviews. I see this discourse a lot. I feel like mostly on Book Talk that somebody will just post it's not even, I guess you would say a negative review. If they did not feel positively about the book, they post a review talking about it and they're like, hey, this book was a 1-star, hey, this book was a 2-star, you know, this is how I felt about it. And I do see a lot of like in the comments or people talking and being like, you should not be saying these things. All of this stuff about like, if it's not positive, just don't talk about it, which I feel like is not something that is good. I feel like there is a fine line of somebody just simply stating their opinion on how they have felt about a book and hate. I feel like automatically now, sometimes within just talking about a book that you did not like can be perceived as like hateful, or you're trying to be outwardly negative when it's literally just like, hey, this is what I thought of the book. And I also do feel like it's all about delivery as well. I feel like there's just a fine line of it, but I do feel like telling somebody that they are not allowed to like put out a negative review is just not good at all. I feel like everybody is allowed to have their own opinions as long as it is kind of kept in that respectful manner. I do think that people should be allowed to talk about the book even if it was more negative. This is coming from somebody who is a harsh rater, okay? If I could not tell you why I rated a book 2 to 1 to 3 stars, or even if I rated a book highly and I want to talk about the negative things with you that I did not like about it and why it was not a 5-star, I should be allowed to. There's nothing wrong with that. If you don't like a book, it's not necessarily bad. It's just not for you. I have been saying this. I feel like, again, sometimes, especially in the book community and when reviewing books or talking about books, wording is everything. But I do see this a lot, especially in the responses where people will say, Book Talk books are bad. This author's books are bad. And I just feel like it's all in the wording where it's just, truthfully, a lot of the time, I feel like we just tend to say this book is bad when you really just mean this book, I did not like this book. Like, this book was not for me. That does not mean that the book is a bad book. You just didn't like it. And I can say that I have fallen into this, and I try to be a lot better about my wording about things, especially if I really get on a rant. Sometimes I feel like the way that I word things can escape me. Just more of being intentional about how you're talking about things. Not saying that just because the book isn't good to you, that does not mean it is bad. There are some books that are bad. There just are, but most of them, if you just have a negative opinion on a book, it may be bad for you, but it's not just a bad book overall. Perspective, sorry about that. Perspective doesn't matter. Okay, it's one of those days. Perspective doesn't matter to me at all. I don't even notice. I am one of these people. I do think deeply about the things that I read. I feel like I've said this before, and people are like, well, then you're just not thinking about what you're reading. I just guess the point of view / perspective of a book has never really mattered to me. It's never been something that bothers me. I will like pick up on it, I guess. Like, obviously you immediately notice what point of view that it's in, but I do not think about it upon like first noticing whether it's an I or they or, you know, she did this or Terry did this, you know, like I don't really pay attention to it. I don't necessarily even care. I know that there are some people who literally are like, I do not want to read third person point of view. And I feel like that just is all in like taste. That's your personal taste, and that's completely fine. I'm just somebody who doesn't really care. Romance books should never be any more than 400 pages. For the most part, I agree. There are a lot of books now, and sometimes I even feel like just more like new releases are kind of falling into this where the book is just longer for no reason at all. What is a recent one? Love Unwritten. I really enjoyed that book. I gave it over a 4-star, but one of my complaints or critiques of the book was just that it was too long. It feels like I think the way that I said it was that if you love the couple, like if you read a book and you love the couple and it's a long book, that's amazing. Listen, I love a book series that is literally the pages are like we're going like 600-700 pages in. I think that's dramatic. But the Boys of Tommen books are so long, and I eat up every single page because I love the characters. Same with the Addicted Calloway Sister series. There's so many books, so many pages of those characters, but I love them, so I don't mind. But when you feel kind of either indifferent or you like the characters, but they're not everything to you, when the books are long, it just feels like, why? We're just writing an extra content to get that page count. And a lot of them, I do understand, like if we're going with like a simple like rom-com book, I have a lot of them on my shelves. If we're getting over or into like the 400 pages, like once we're over the 350 page mark and it's honestly just like a regular, rom-com book, I'm like, why? Why? Because we're either going to A, write in a meaningless conflict that is going to come out of nowhere and ruin the entire pacing and structure of this book, or we're just like keep on going to go. But it's usually option one. I agree on some points, but also like with my book series, I really enjoy when they're long books because if I love characters, I want as much of them as possible. Internet famous books are often a flop for me, way overrated. I saw this a lot, in the different wording of like book talk books are awful, book talk books are overhyped. The generalization of the term book talk books, like I will even say it, one of the things that I say is like an OG book talk book. When book talk first became a thing, I feel like ACOTAR, Punk 57, all of the Colleen Hoover books, Song of Achilles, I'm trying to think. I'll refer to those as that. But now I feel like book talk is just so big. And without a doubt, there are books that are so popular on there. We're taking Elsie Silver series are so popular. Emily Henry books, Boys of Tommen, ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, Fourth Wing. There's so many books that you just see circulating all throughout. That is very apparent. But also, there are so many different corners of book talk. I feel like especially now, if you compare like the beginning of book talk, where there still were those corners, but now as book talk grows and the community grows and more people get into it, more people are sharing their book tastes, there are so many different corners of book talk. I'm on different corners of book talk. I'll see the more literary book talk, I'll see horror talk, like I see so many different sides. So even just the like term, like a book talk book, I know what it is saying when somebody says it. We're talking again about like the books that you just see nonstop circulated. But again, I feel like it's unfair to say like all book talk books are this when you are not acknowledging that there are so many different sides of book talk. Like there are things that I don't even ever see because book talk is honestly so expansive. In this way, just internet famous books are often a flop for me, way overrated. I do understand the sentiment because I have spoke on it and I feel like I also do kind of fall into this a lot now, where when you pick up a book that has a very fair amount of hype, people really, really love it, all of that, you go into the book differently than if you did not know a single thing about the book. When I talk about the book Beach Read, you will probably, maybe more than likely, automatically already associate it with the hype that is attached to it, versus if Beach Read was just this like unnamed book that you found at Barnes & Noble, didn't know anything about it, you weren't on social media, you're going in with two completely different expectations. I do feel like sometimes hype does set books up to already have this established idea in your head of what the book is going to be or should be. And so then when you read it, it kind of ruins your reading experience because you'll never know what you would have rated that book without the hype attached to it. Either way, negative or positive, because sometimes I have definitely fallen into this, like earlier in my reading career on BookTube, is that when I would read very, very hyped books, I would just feel like, oh, well, I should be rating this highly because so many people love it. So obviously it deserves this high rating because of the hype. Obviously I have dropped that thought because you are your own person. You are allowed to have your own thoughts about something that you're reading. The hype in books can set the book up for failure and can also set the reader up for failure because like I said, I just feel like you will never know going into that book like what you would have thought of it positively or negatively. I refuse to watch TV adaptations of books. They ruin the image in my head most of the time. I will say I started doing this unless I love a book, like love a series, love a book. I feel like I'm kind of opting out of watching them because I think, for example, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was released recently. I have not watched it. I kind of have no interest in watching the show. Maybe if I was bored one day or if I just thought about watching it, I would. It Ends With Us. I have not watched the adaptation of that. Daisy Jones and the Six. I watched that adaptation. I absolutely loved it, but Daisy Jones and the Six was one of my 5-star reads. I think about that book all of the time, literally have it, front and center. So I feel like I'm very back and forth. If there was a Throne of Glass adaptation, I'm in the front row. I'm actually going to camp out to watch that. You know, like I feel like it's just very different, but I feel like books that I'm indifferent about, I'm not like running, you know, to like go watch it because I feel like I just have my own thing established in my brain. Like one of the things I think about is how Emily Henry books are getting adaptations, right? And I'm now scared because when I read those books, like in my mind, I imagine, like I've reread pretty much most of my Emily Henry books at this point. I reread People We Meet on Vacation, Book Lovers, Beach Read all this year, right? And I just have my own like imagination of what they are, how they act, you know, all of that stuff. But like after I watch the adaptations, because I love Emily Henry books, so of course in this example I'm going to be watching them, it just does change in your mind. Now you will never not see them. I read Six of Crows like after the TV show had already came out, and I would see edits and stuff of it. So even when I read it for the first time, I was imagining the characters from the TV show. So I'll never know, like I never had the experience of like reading those books without knowing the characters in my mind already, because then if you go back and reread it, like whenever People Meet on Vacation comes out, like if I wanted to go reread it, I'm imagining Tom Blythe as Alex, you know, is that his name? I actually don't really get love triangles, especially when the FMC is actively flirting with both. This is a big reason why I hate love triangles. You guys want to see love triangles' biggest hater? You're looking at her. Let's get all arrows pointing to me. Let's get a slow zoom. Let's get a slow zoom with all arrows pointing to me. Let's get some dinging going on. Me, you're looking at her. You don't like love triangles. And I actually think I'm really revved up on this topic because I actually sat in bed and watched every single Twilight movie like a few days ago because I couldn't get out of bed. I just watched all of those, and I just like reestablished my hate for love triangles. And as I get older, the more that I hate them, and even just seeing them represented in media, like I do not like them at all. When you're putting me into a romantic situation, I want the one person. And let's just focus on that, because then I never actually get like 100% fully root for a couple when there's a love triangle, because it's like, but what? Like just focus on one person. Like I don't understand. I don't like it. It is not something that I enjoy because it gives me the immediate ick when it's like, oh, she's over here with this guy, and like it's always apparent who the girl's gonna pick, by the way. And it's like, oh, she's like with them, blah, blah, blah. And then, oh no, but I'm going to flirt with him just to cause a conflict within the story. That's all it is. And we know that I hate the stupid conflicts that are just going to go nowhere. No, I just also feel like then it just makes the couple hard to root for. Now you've taken me out of it. Not every book should be a movie. I have really been feeling this lately, and I don't want to sound like some hater because I really, honestly, at the end of the day, like don't care. But sometimes the first thought that runs through my brain when I see like, now I feel like we see it all of the time. Like this book's getting adapted, and sometimes I'm like, do we need it? No. Like some books, I'm just like, we've done this before, because at some point, rom-coms, whether that's in movies or romance books, are formulaic. So we've seen this film before. You know, maybe you like the ending, maybe you don't. Some of the just like regular run-of-the-mill rom-com books getting adapted, I'm like, but we've seen this film before. I don't need to see it on the screen again. I like when the very, you know, unique book, or, you know, like for example, some of my literary fiction, some of Daisy Jones and the Six, loved seeing that get adapted onto the screen because I feel like it's something that you don't see a lot. I would like to see more of like Taylor Jenkins Reid's books get adapted. I feel like they're very interesting. I know Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is in the works. Even though that's not one of my favorite books, I still think that will be very interesting on screen. I feel like more of like my fiction books I would like to see adapted versus like my romance books. I'm still asking for an Addicted Callaway adaptation though. I feel like that would eat. Reading it on Kindle, even though you have the physical copy, especially with thick books. I don't know if we're saying that this is bad or good, but you know what? I do it. Like I told you guys, I mean, I do love reading a good paperback. Like I love bending it, you know, doing all the stuff that everybody hates that I do to them. But lately, especially because I have been laying in bed and I've not been able to get out of bed, I like reading on my Kindle, or I like listening to audiobooks. You know, they're my favorite way to read right now, and so I will find any excuse to read on my Kindle. I will find a Kindle Unlimited book. I will go on Libby and find a book that I can read on my Kindle. I will do anything. Okay, I love reading on my Kindle. As this response says, when the book is thick, You're not seeing me read it physically, babe? No, that's actually awful. Don't want to give myself, what is that, carpal tunnel? I already feel like I'm getting it at such a young age from editing all the time. I don't want to like do that to my wrists from reading this book. I'm a small girl. I don't like when a time frame is made into a big part of the plot. For example, I'm leaving in 3 months. Hate it. Actually, I did not know that anybody else felt strongly about this. For example, one of the books that I'm thinking of is, where are you at? Caught Up. One of my favorite series, the Windy City series, right? The third book in that series. This has one of those where it's like, at the end of the summer, I'm moving to this whatever. It's because you know it's just like that time frame is just being used for the conflict later in the book. And I'm like, and we keep talking about it. I'm like, because I know that instead of communicating, like you've kept on talking about this timeline, instead of communicating, especially like when the timeline is coming up and now you guys have these feelings for each other, instead of being like, hey, by the way, I know that we talked about this like when we first met, this thing that's coming up, how about we communicate through what we're doing, you know, like we have these feelings for each other, you know, like you can still do what you're doing. I would just like to communicate about like what's happening with that. No, the characters will avoid it, not talk about it, and then it'll just be used as a conflict. So that's why I loathe when the character's like, in 3 months I started this internship. I'm like, kill me. Your opinion on a book is purely based on when, where, and the memories you attach with it. You know what? Yeah. This is a big part in rating. And this is why I always say people and their book tastes are so much different. I feel like when you pick up a book, I feel like age, circumstance, where you're at mentally, how you read the book, if you read it fast, the scenery around you when you read it, there are so many things that go into a book. One of the examples that I love to use, Normal People. I read this when I was in high school. I was not doing that well mentally. I was definitely pushing a lot of things down, not wanting to realize a lot about myself. And I read Normal People and I hated it. I hated the book, right? I reread Normal People earlier this year, being several years, like what, 3? Yeah, 3 years older, in a completely different circumstance in my life, still mentally struggling. That's not changed. But, you know, I've accepted and realized some things about myself, and I could find myself really relating to Connell as a character. That really changed everything for me, and now I love that book. Like, I think about that book all of the time. I've had different life circumstances that have made me relate to characters differently. Even just thinking about, like, some rereads. For example, I reread Book Lovers last month. That was not a 5-star read previously, but then I picked it up, again, self-realization, things, even just in life and, like, friendships or relationships that I've noticed about myself, even just, like, myself as a person, that made me relate and take the story differently than I did the first time and love it, you know, or vice versa. There's been books that I have loved. I'll pick them up to reread them and I hate them, okay? And I just feel like it's definitely based off of circumstance. Even if we're just talking about reading a book for the first time, I will never not wonder. Sometimes, like, when I'm in a book slump and I just, like, hate a book, but I realize that I'm in a book slump, I'm like, I wish and want to reread that book when I'm no longer in a slump or I don't feel like this mentally. I would much rather read the book when I don't have that feeling attached to it because I feel like it would be way different. So I do agree with this, that I do feel like opinions and ratings reflect on so much other than just like what is inside of the book and different things about it. I feel like so much plays into it. Obviously, you always have the core structure of the book where it's like writing, if you're that type of person, or like plot, story, characters. Obviously, that always plays into it. But I feel like all of the other like outwardly feelings that can create a bubble around the book of the way that you feel about reading it is always different, and I do feel like plays into the rating. Romance books are slowly dying. I do not agree with this one. I think romance has been around for a really long time, and I feel like romance will just always be around. I feel like it's one of those outlets that women have to just enjoy and kind of use as a form of escapism. I feel like that's one of the main things. I don't think romance will ever die out. Like rom-coms, even just like as movies and stuff, have always been popular for years and years. Maybe the idea behind this is just that, you know, people were saying like romance books are just kind of feeling the same after a while, like everybody's just writing about the same things, which I agree with. I feel like, you know, romance books are very formulaic, and now maybe people are seeing what's popular, why it's popping off. I feel like we're just in a new age of media where things can get popularized so quickly, and then other people see the growth that something has because of a certain trope or thing that was included in the book, and they're like, well, I'll do that. You know, like, I'll include that in my book because I know that'll get the clicks, that'll get the girlies going. So now we're kind of seeing the repetitive nature. And if we're going to talk about romance books specifically, yeah, absolutely. Do I think romance books are dying? No. Reading in bed kind of sucks. You know what? Yeah, I know I have said that I have not been able to leave my bed for days, which has really hurt my reading. Not to mention I am in a huge reading slump, which is why we're not seeing, a lot of reading vlogs right now. One, I can never get, oh my God, trying to read a physical book in bed? No, never reading a physical book in bed. My Kindle specifically, trying to find that comfy, spot, and then you find the comfy spot. But for me, that's with no arms. I like to tuck my arms and not use my arms in bed, okay? And I know what you girlies are going to say before you even say it, okay? I know one of y'all are going to comment, Destiny, get the click thing for the Kindle. You think I haven't thought about that? Something in me is like, no, I can't do that. No, I can't. I can't have the little click thing. I feel bad for having the click thing. I can't get it. Authors should be given more time to write their books. We need to practice patience. Yeah. Because I have even said, and I can't remember if it was in the video that got deleted of this, I have even said that I feel like we are in a day and age where books are just being rushed. They're being pumped out. They're just being rushed because of how many books people are buying and reading, and how many books are just circulating around, becoming popular. Obviously, if an author is popular at the moment, they want to capitalize off of that as long as they can. That's just the way that things go. But also, I feel like a lot of that pressure can come from readers as consumers. And it can be this is a series, especially fantasy. I feel like fantasy is another thing that takes a while in between books. And it's I want the next book right now. I get it. I am the same way. If I know that there is going to be a next book in the series, I'm when and where and how am I going to be getting that, as quick as possible. But I feel like readers can put a lot of pressure on authors to be pumping out these books faster because people just want the next book, and then you end up getting complaints. People are I feel like this book was rushed, I feel like blah, blah, blah. And it's but we were rushing though. Charlie is kicking my phone. Do you guys want to? My dog is right here. She's just hidden in these pillows a little bit. Finishing a book on the Kindle doesn't give me the happiness I get from finishing a physical one. I agree. Of the when you're just tapping through your Kindle and you're reading, and then it's done and it pops up and it tells you you're done. It asks you to rate it. I don't get that satisfaction. It is not as satisfying as boom, closing the book, knowing that you're done, and then logging on and logging that you've read the book. Nothing will be like that. I love my Kindle so much, but that is something where it's it'll just never compare. It's one of the best feelings in the world. Just because the first book popped off doesn't mean there needs to be a second one. I've been feeling this a lot lately. I DNF'd, was that last month? Was that last month or the month before? Was that in August or September? Where are the months going? I think it was August, actually. DNF'd The Grandest Games, which is a continuation of a spin-off series of the Inheritance game. And I just was what are we doing? I got to a certain point in it and I was I don't care at all, actually. What are we doing? And I felt like that was the first book where it just felt to me, I don't like using the term money grab because it feels just honestly so aggressive a little bit to just be money grab. But it just feels like that in a way because it's instead of just writing something different, which take your time writing something different. You don't have to rush out and make something new. You're profiting off of because everybody loved the Inheritance games and that's so popular that it's I'm just going to write a spin-off series that's basically the same thing just with other characters. And it's just not the same. It's just let's go do something else. I kind of felt that way with Nothing Like the Movies. I enjoyed that book, but then by the end of it, I was did we need this? What was that? If Only She Knew? What was the second book called? If Only I Had Told Her. Not If Only She Knew. If Only I Had Told Her. That was another one that this year I read earlier into the year, and I was this was not needed at all. A lot of just repetition and nothing in that book, but it's just because If He Had Been With Me got so popular, If a book takes effort to understand/read, it's just not very good. I don't really agree with this one. I feel it's very important to practice critical thinking when reading. I feel obviously, hey, I'm somebody who will literally just read a book for enjoyment. I don't want to think at all, actually. I have so many of those books. But also, I get very, what is it? inquisitive. So sometimes I like to sit down with a book that is going to make me think, that's going to make me underline and really like take some thoughts away from the book and really think about it for months and like chew on what that book was. I think it's very important to read literature and nonfiction that will make you think. Reading is escapism, and if that's just not something for you, like you are genuinely like, listen, I'm just trying to unwind at the end of the day. I don't want to think thoughts. I think them enough. Listen, I'm right there with you. I am the same way. I think so much that sometimes I wish I could just like open my brain like a lid and take it out. I am plagued with thoughts. I am the same way with a lot of my reading, but I just do think reading critically is important. People should be practicing critical thinking when reading sometimes. Like, you don't have to do it all the time. Even if you're not critically thinking when reading, that's not bad. But I also have a lot of books on my shelves that do make me critically think, and I like to kind of like take something away with me and talk about. I get a lot of that from nonfiction. I really enjoy reading nonfiction and just taking things away from it. Tropes are slowly ruining books. Now, while I don't agree with the sentiment that it's just ruining books, I think that in certain ways it does affect the quality of the book. And what I mean by that is sometimes I do feel like we're throwing in a little bit of like an over tropifying book. This is not a blanket statement. What I mean by this is sometimes I feel like, you know, you can see the recommendations that are like, this is like enemies to lovers, friends to lovers. I don't feel like the problem is in just tropes. I feel like the problem, it's not even whatever, is in micro tropes. And what I mean by that is when we get into like, who did this to you, dagger to the throat scene, just the little tiny micro tropes that are basically just scenes within a book, where it feels like sometimes authors do know that a certain like micro trope or even just trope in general is very popular, so they're just writing to fit that trope so people can recommend the book via that trope. I don't know if any of this is making sense. And that way you can think that maybe it's ruining quality of books a little bit, because it's like, instead of just writing this story, we're surrounding a trope instead of just writing a story. And sometimes I don't even think that that's the case, that an author has written a story around a trope. I feel like maybe sometimes we can read a book and be like, oh, well, it's giving friends to lovers, so that's how I'm going to recommend it, and we kind of may be dwindling it down to a trope. So in a way, I'm kind of in the middle with this one. I don't think it's like, oh, it's ruined, but I think it's definitely like putting an effect on some things for sure. Reading ratings are only valuable if you have a similar book taste as that person. I don't really agree with this. I personally feel like I watch a lot of YouTubers that in ways our tastes are similar, but kind of in the root of it, they're not at all actually. And I really like watching their videos still. One, I don't really care if we have the same book tastes. I just like watching people talk about books because I love books so much. But also, I feel like sometimes if somebody that I know, like, we don't really see eye to eye on different like genres and stuff within the rating system, if they tell me like, I didn't really like this book because of this and that, but I know that that's why I would like the book, I'm like, I'll pick it up. I feel like there's just so much knowledge and stuff and seeing everybody's other like opinions on books. I'm blanking actually. I don't agree. Not liking dust jackets and just throwing them away. Listen, this one's a little crazy. Not crazy, wild. Because I also don't like dust jackets. Like, for example, I was reading Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. That's this book. And the dust jacket is on the floor. I'm looking at it, and I'll put the dust jacket back on after I'm done reading it because I like dust jackets, the look of them. I don't like the feel of them while reading a book. Throwing them, y'all are chucking these dust jackets in the trash. I will say I accidentally did that for, where is it? The Atlas Paradox right there. I accidentally did that for that book. I don't mind the way that one looks. That feels wrong. Like, I accidentally did it for that book, and it bothers me every single time I see it that I accidentally did it. Like, if it has a dust jacket, it needs it. I love epilogues, especially if they have kids and get married. I did it up every time. Listen, I am an epilogue lover. I literally just went on this rant on a video where I said, sometimes I want the epilogue. You want to know why? I want that finality in it. I don't even care if we think it's cheesy. Listen, I understand that some people are like, no, it's so cheesy, I just don't care about them. Okay, I've said in a video before, like in one of these videos, and don't read them, I love epilogues because I need the finality, I need the closure. If I'm closing the book and I'm never seeing this couple again, give me the finality of their story. Kindles are overrated sometimes. No, I actually don't agree with this one at all, even though you put sometimes in parentheses. I don't even know what that means. They're never overrated to me. I love my Kindle. Me and my Kindle go everywhere together. Pregnancy trope eats. Listen, I do not mind the pregnancy trope. Y'all we're hating on it. Like, a lot of people hate the like surprise pregnancy or pregnancy trope. I kind of eat it up. Authors should kill off more characters, especially in fantasy. I have been saying this piece of information. I have been saying that, especially reading fantasy, we're starting to feel a little bit of the same. Even aside from that statement of how I feel like now fantasy is becoming formulaic and where like people are just also copying what is being popular, whether that's tropes or characters, I can't say it actually. The shadowy main character, I can't say the other word, that's just being overused. Which that type of character has always been there. I have been saying that when I like read a fantasy, I cannot tell you the last time that I have read a fantasy book and I have genuinely like been on the edge of my seat. Like, I do not know what is going to happen, because I know that no author, even if the character dies, I'm like, oh, they're going to get brought back to life somehow. Like, there is no risk that these authors are taking to like actually kill off a character, like a main character. Even I feel like main characters are not dying. Like, they're literally like, nope, everybody's just gonna live happily ever after. These books are not high stakes at all to me, because I know everything's gonna get tied up with a pretty little bow. We may lose a side character or two, but it's never the side characters that you care about. Modern references, TikTok, Instagram, make books cringy, and I don't like them. I definitely feel like I feel this. Do you guys remember how, and also I would go on rants like a year ago about TikTok being mentioned in books and how much I hated it, or if like the career is a TikToker. I'm not there. Okay. Even YouTuber, I'll be like, no. I'm good. But also, I feel like it can date a book like the same way that, like, you know, like when we would read Wattpad books and it was just like, even if you like go back and read them, like it's so camp a little bit, because the outfits are literally like a galaxy skater skirt or like a teal skater skirt with like the little what do you call that, Peter Pan collared shirts with like the chunky necklaces. So like, you know, like it's so dated where it's not just like, oh, this is just like any point in time, doesn't really matter. I feel like having those references and like talking about like slang and social media terms and stuff, it doesn't work a lot of the times in books. There has been a few books where they've been able to incorporate it in a way that feels natural. It's just a lot of the times it's like we're sticking out like a sore thumb. A 5 star is just a feeling. It doesn't have to be a literary masterpiece. I agree with this, because in a lot of things, like I always reference a book as like, it's not a 5-star feeling. Even if I do love the book from like a literary lens, like I think it's written very well, I really enjoy the characters, I enjoy the plot, but 5-star, like at the end of the day, we all know what it means to have that like 5-star feeling. Like you can't even really describe it. It's just like, this book has made me feel things that only 5-star reads can. I don't like color-coded shelves. At one point in time, I organized my bookshelf to be color-coded. And this was the most opinionated I feel like I've ever seen people on my channel. One of the most, okay? I remember being so excited because I loved, like, aesthetically, the color-coded shelves scratch an itch in my brain. I loved them. I remember spending so much time organizing them. I loved the way that they looked. I am a person, though, especially as I've gotten older. This is just how I am. And I felt like this when I did it, but also I was like, oh, but I just really like the way they look, so I'm just kind of, like, putting that to the side. I am a person that does have to have like all of our series and authors together. Like I have to have my authors together. I have to have my series together. That way I can reference like where they're at. They're all together. So I do understand like why some people absolutely hate it, because in their mind they're like, all of the authors aren't together. Like, how do you know where this book is at? But it's like, I memorized the cover of the book, you know, like the way that people like, I just don't care. I really still love aesthetically seeing the color-coded shelves. And I know that you still know where all of the certain books are at because you know the color of the cover. Like, you know the color of the cover, you know the author's name, like, you know where the book is at on your shelves. It's not like some bookstore where you're just like, I have no recollection. I don't even know where they would put this book. You're like, I know where the book is at. Okay, we're ending off on one that I feel so strongly about. Listening to audiobooks count. Pause. The whole entire, and this is like one of the responses that I feel like I get the most, and it's that I used to not get them that much, and I've spoke about this before in types of videos like this, and I've always had the same stance on it. Audiobooks don't count as reading. Audiobooks do count as reading. You know, like people are all over the place. And the main thing that people will say, like when they're saying they don't count as reading, they're like, well, because it's not reading. You're not like physically reading the book. Here's what I want to tell you. I want us to like get real close and personal for a second, okay? If I tell you, yep, I read this book and then I am telling you my opinions on it. I'm telling you the plot of it. I don't like being listened in. I'm telling you my opinions, the plot, how the book transpired. I'm having all of these thoughts because I know what happened in the book because I listened to it on the audiobook. I'm telling you all of these thoughts. This is what I think about the book. And I don't tell you how I took that content in. I don't tell you, hey, I read it on my Kindle. I don't tell you, hey, I read it physically. I don't tell you whether I listened to it. You'll just go, oh yeah, I know. Like, I also read the book, and say you read it physically and I listened to the audiobook. You don't know I listened to the audiobook. We're having the same conversation. We both know what has happened in the book. We both have the same thoughts, or we don't have the same thoughts, but we're able to have a discourse about the book. But I don't tell you, oh, that I listened to the audiobook, but then say at the end of our conversation, I'm like, yeah, like I listened to the audiobook and I thought it was really good. Are you all of a sudden, do my opinions not count? You're going to look and go, oh, but you didn't actually read the book, so it's different. No, it's not. Where this argument comes from is a sense of superiority. And I feel like this is just something that has been happening. There are just people who will just have this sense of superiority about how they intake books, what books they read, what their opinions are, different things all over the place. And when looking at somebody and going, well, you listened to it as an audiobook, so you didn't really read it. It's like, why do you care? Why does it matter how somebody read the book? It just feels like you think that you are better because you spent the time reading the book. If you don't like audiobooks, that is fine. But also, people live such busy lives that they want to read a book, and maybe they work, they are taking care of their children, they're doing all of these things around the house, they are busy people, so the way that they can feel that escapism is through listening to audiobooks, and then you're going to look and go, well, that's not really reading. Why does it matter? I will always die on the hill of like, why does it matter? It just feels like a sense of superiority that you think that you are better than this person because you sat down and read the words on a page versus listened to the words being spoke to you. Also, I love audiobooks because I sometimes really need the help of somebody telling me the story versus me reading it. It really helps my understanding and comprehension, and for my imagination to be told these things. Doesn't matter. We're just getting down to wording. Nevertheless, I have intaken the content of the book and it has been read. Okay? Anyway, let me know if you guys liked this video. I know I talked for quite a long time, so I'm very sorry about that one. As always, if you guys have anything to say, any discourse down below, let's keep it respectful with all of us, with each other. This is just a fun video to make, to talk about differences of opinions. I feel like it's like, this is like such a niche interest and like different niche things within the book world that I find very interesting to like see everybody's other opinions on. So just remember, when having discourse, just keep it respectful. Everybody's allowed to have their own opinion they're entitled to, as long as we're just being respectful to each other. At the end of the day, not that big of a deal. I just think it's a fun little thing to talk about. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did, you guys know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff that you guys know how to do. Thank you so much again to Pair Eyewear for sponsoring today's video. You guys don't forget, I'm going to have that link down below, Desk Reading 15, to get 15% off your first pair. And with all of this being said, I will see you guys when I see ya. Peace.